What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P, Shannon White, another series of global perspective content after the third week of Steelers OTAs. Shannon White, how are you going, my good friend?
Doing great, blessed, and just, the third week of OTAs finishing up and mandatory mini camp around the corner. And I'm excited and ready to talk about it.
I love it. All right. Well, I mean, obviously the headline news of the week, if it's not Cam Hayward's contract, and you and I have talked a lot about Cam Hayward's contract in the last 3 months, I'm kind of at that point, they're just going to do what they're going to do. I'll do that anyway, regardless of what we say. But I think when it comes to Cam Sutton was probably some big news this week. There are people that love it. There are people that hate it. There are people that are somewhere in between, probably where I fit into the mix. But at the same time, at this stage of the offseason where you're stuck between, the post-draft and roster cut downs at the end of the preseason, really, I mean, there's not a lot of other talent out there. But I think it's a good opportunity to talk about the Steelers secondary. We've now seen some of the guys at OTAs. We've seen some of the guys they've brought in, like your Anthony Everett's and your Josiah Scotts and Beanie Bishop. Obviously they got him as a UDFA. We're starting to see a little bit of Ryan Watts. Obviously, Trice is back finally. So I think it's a good time to talk about the secondary, particularly the cornerback room, because I'm feeling pretty comfortable with the safeties, but I'm sure you might have some opinions there. But I guess reaction to Cam Sutton and some of these movements in the secondary.
Yeah, the whole thing about Cam Sutton is I'm concerned about the domestic violence charges, obviously. I know they've reduced the charges. Now it's a misdemeanor charge, but depending on what reports you've seen, some are way worse than others. So there's been so many different stories. I don't know what to believe, and we may never truly know. But I feel like the Steelers have done their due diligence. They know him better than any franchise in the league, obviously, from having him for 6 years. He's very close to Tomlin. He's very close to his teammates. And I know that the Steelers are not going to bring in somebody that they feel like is going to be a detriment to the culture. So I feel like that we're going to learn more. We won't ever know everything probably. Yeah. But I feel okay with it. He's a unique signing in that he knows this defense inside and out. Tomlin has said he's one of the smartest players and defenders he's ever coached. So you've got a guy who's going to come in, who's going to be a great example, mentor on the field for a guy like Beanie Bishop, who we both agree has immense potential. I believe to really develop into something, and you got him as an undrafted free agent. So if you got your future starting slot as an undrafted guy, and you got your current starting slot as a 7-year veteran who is actually better in the slot and in certain dime packages and sub packages than he was starting on the outside for Detroit for the veteran minimum, the Steelers have really bolstered their secondary to, I think it's the deepest secondary in franchise history from top to bottom, because we could talk about it, but I think they go 7 deep. And some of these guys are going to be practice squad. Some ain't going to make it. And last year, a lot of these guys that ain't going to make it would have made it. And so you really got to – they've done a great job, Omar Khan and Andy Waddle, of strengthening this secondary, starting with last year's draft to Joey Porter Jr. And I'm very excited about it. That's how you build a championship team. You need a little good fortune. And the Steelers getting to say Russell Wilson, Fields, Sutton, Bishop, Wilson, Peyton Wilson. You're talking great value where they got them, all of them.
I mean, I don't dispute the value or Sutton at the slot and what Mike Tomlin said that. You and I, again, will never know. I feel a lot less strongly on the Steelers knowing you know, like bring someone in that's not going to be. I mean, I'm assuming I'll trust that they know we're not bringing someone that's going to be a distraction, but we've had some pretty average characters in the team at times that when they keep on the straight and narrow, we're all happy and hunky dory with them. But then eventually, there's a tipping point. So that makes me a little bit less confident about the current Steelers front office.
But would you not say that about all franchises?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of other NFL franchises. I think though that we are learning very quickly in the NFL that there are. Well, maybe it's the world we live in today, and maybe it's social media, and maybe it's tech or whatever. But I mean, I feel as though as a fan that I'm seeing a lot more of these incidents than what I saw before.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think that Antonio Brown was one of the all-time greats for as long as Tomlin could control him. When he got to where he was out of control, they had to let him go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Sutton is an AB or a Le'Veon Bell type or anything. I don't, but I'm not going to lie. Like, I would never lie. I'm not. I hope that that there's nothing more there. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's
well, me and you agree about having no tolerance for domestic violence. I mean, zero, none. And absolutely, so when we talked about it originally, I didn't want nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
But I just feel like that if that is something that they're willing to, I think they just feel like they know him better than that. I will say this, and I know you've seen it too, because all the local beat guys that have known him now for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
How many guys, I mean, you hear guys get in trouble all the time, and nobody says nothing. Yeah. When this happened with Cam Sutton, everybody was speaking out saying, this does not match the guy we know.
Totally.
I've seen so many people on Twitter that have met him, just fans, and they say, quality person, great guy. Nobody, it just doesn't fit the narrative. When you look at AB when he was slipping, or Martavius Bryant, or any of the guys that have really been drama queens, it fit them on the field and off the field. I don't know if this what happened, but I'm just saying it doesn't fit the narrative.
Totally. Yeah, and look, this is it. And this is the thing for me that made me feel less strongly about it, and open to talking about it, is the fact that it's been downgraded to a misdemeanor. And yeah. And anyway, I think look, we're not going to know. It is what it is. But look, ultimately, the Steelers, if the on-field play is good, the character stuff's good, then like from henceforth, fantastic. I see there being an opportunity for problems. That's what I'm saying.
I think the closest we'll get to full disclosure is the suspension or not suspension. If it's a 2-game, then I think that, it was more than what they're wanting to act like, even up to 4 games. If it turns out to not being a suspension, I think that it'll be something, that it was maybe blown out of proportion. Somebody was saying on a podcast discussion thread the other day that if you take a person's cell phone away from them, that's considered kidnapping, where it can be charged as kidnapping. So when you hear,
I mean, you guys live in a world over there where, I mean, it's increasingly the same thing here, but
I'm saying is when
someone can make a comment and you can be mortally offended forever. So.
Oh yeah, when you hear the charges or accusations, you don't know what's true, because so many people will say these things. I heard the first he threw her out of a second-story window, so obviously that wasn't true. But I heard that immediately after.
Well, if that was the case, you wouldn't be on the Steelers, because
that's what I'm saying.
It'd be on some sort of attempted murder charge.
Exactly. So, we have to trust the Steelers that they are doing the due diligence and they feel comfortable with it. So, and the fact that it's so out of character, I want to believe that. I mean, Ray Rice, when he punched his fiance, now they've been married now for many, many years since that time. They got married after that. And they've been married for a long time. And but when you do something, it's going to scar you. It's going to follow you for life. And obviously, I mean, he's done things speaking out for domestic violence against it. And Ray Rice has tried to make amends. And she forgave him and married him. But all we'll ever think about is the incident that we have seen. So I know that there's always, a future story. There is a life after. Totally. And that's where you see a lot of the character of the individual.
There's the rugby league team that I support here. There's the two types of rugby. They're very similar situation in some ways to the Ray Rice. I mean, this poor woman, his wife's, they were fiancés at the time, face. I mean, like the neighbors were calling the police. That's what went right. And that started to go to the courts. And then suddenly I've withdrew my charges or whatever. And anyway, we could get into a very big topic here, but there's the financial stuff. There's stuff the clubs do. I also think the NFL could suspend him for 4 games, and it might still be it might be a very minor misdemeanor. And that's just what they do because they suspended Tom Brady for 4 games, and he should be suspended for longer than that for the Deflategate stuff. But anyway, I guess my big thing when signing Sutton this week, when I was thinking about it from a depth chart perspective, is the thing that otherwise concerns me is that I want to see the Steelers develop their secondary, but particularly their cornerbacks. And
yes,
I know that everyone should compete and what have you, but we also need to look at upside. And so I guess my question to you on it is how, I guess out of 10 being like, no way he can make the 53 now, 1 being, so it's more likely Sutton will be on the practice squad. How does this affect out of 10, like Beanie Bishop's chances of making the 53?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I don't know if you've been paying, I know you pay attention. And I have, when I can, it's been a little bit of a hectic week.
I've had that
since last Thursday, but I have tried to catch up where I can. But I follow a lot of the camp reports. I read all the reports because it's usually about a 15-minute read at the most if you read them all. But I also follow the interviews and the podcast when I can. If you really look at the secondary, the guys that have stood out, and I'm talking about looking at the full range of all the camp reports and all the different beat reporters, Trice Rush had a very strong week 1 and week 2 of OTAs. I think he solidified himself that he is somebody that they think has a future in Pittsburgh. He really showed his speed, his length, and the talent that we knew he had coming out. We know that Corey Trice is moving very, very well. Seems that, he's not favoring the leg, and he's ahead of schedule. But of all the guys, Beanie Bishop has received more positive comments and after every practice, after every OTA. People are very high on Beanie Bishop. And the words I keep hearing is what me and you talked about when he was coming out of WVU. He's competitive. He's feisty. He's fast. It doesn't matter who they match him up on.
Yeah.
He battles. It could be George Pickens, the Steelers' best receiver. It could be Watkins, the Steelers' best deep threat. It could be Calvin Austin, whatever. He's matching up on these guys, and he's competing. And so, to me, Bishop, I thought before they signed Sutton that he was a 10 to make this roster. I'm very confident in Beanie Bishop. I say now it's still a 9, at least an 8, that he makes this roster. Because I'm telling you, guys like Anthony Averett, Josiah Scott, these guys ain't making it. So they're not making this roster. Beanie Bishop will make this roster.
Okay. I think this is interesting. I know that it's hard with the way our screen's set up when we're both on, so I won't pull it up in front of you. But obviously, I did a show it came out Thursday morning in the US on a bit of where the depth chart was sitting and start to look at some early camp battles. Right, if I look at the list right now, and one's got to go effectively, there are 11 DBs. Right, I'm counting Killebrew in that 11, but I'm just going to run through it, and I want you to, when I get through them all, then we can talk about who's the most likely odd man out here.
Yeah.
Because I have a sneaky if Sutton's going to make it. I've got one that I didn't say on that show that I did, which people are going to go, what the heck? But it might be the case. So you go Deshaun Elliott, Miles Killebrew, which obviously strong safeties. Fitzpatrick, Kazi, slot corner, Sutton, and Bishop. Then you've got Porter, Dante Jackson, Trice Rush, Ryan Watts, I think, is in there battling, with someone. But that's 11 blokes. Let's take out Killebrew and just call him the special teams bloke. Then you've got 10. You've got 10 blokes, and they need to be 9. And to me, if Ryan Watts is going to make the squad, which could be very helpful, and I think will be helpful on special teams.
Yes.
If Darius Rush is doing so well, and if Trice performs like he did last year in training camp, although we've not seen anything in game and still, not in game, but the Steelers offense will be markedly improved this year. So if he performs at the equal level he did last year, then that will tell you something. Then Kazi kind of becomes the odd man out.
Well, you didn't mention, as we talked earlier, Scott, you didn't mention Averett. Because I agree with you. I think that they're already out of this conversation.
Scott is a terrific practice squad player. If you can carry Scott on the practice squad this season.
Yeah.
Ace.
But I agree. Right? I don't think they're in this discussion. I've said all along that we almost have to keep Killebrew, as you said, separate because he is that special teams ace.
Yeah.
So we'll keep him in his own position. And if he has to play a position, it's going to be like a dime linebacker or strong safety in a pinch. But Deshaun Elliott, here's why I think Kazee would be the guy that would be, vulnerable. Because
I bet it's the same. And I bet it's the same reason.
Yes, there's nothing that Kazee can do that Sutton can't do.
And with the way that Deshaun Elliott can play in the slot, if Ryan Watts can prove speed and understanding of the Steelers scheme, he is more adaptable overall. And I know the majority of circumstances you want to play Porter on the outside, but Porter getting up to 205 pounds also helps him in some schemes because that extra strength and weight is a big deal.
The Steelers have got to replace both gunners. And Ryan Watts looks like he would be the best gunner on this team. You have a guy who could take 2 positions. He can fill a backup safety and he can be a corner.
Yep.
Now, you brought up a great point, but we also got to remember who our linebackers are now. You're going to have Deshaun Elliott you can throw in the slot against size. You've got Patrick Queen. You've got Peyton Wilson, who's already working in the dime packages. Peyton Wilson can run with anybody, wide receivers too, but especially tight ends. So last year they had nobody. This year they got 3 bodies right there I mentioned that they can maneuver around and utilize. We talked a little bit about it last night on Pump Your Brakes, that if teams see guys in motion or try to create mismatches, like a really good basketball team, all 5 guys can switch off if necessary so they don't have to chase. That's how this defense can be. Well, you got Fitzpatrick can do anything on the field. You got Deshaun Elliott that can cover and play against size. You got Patrick Queen who can move. And you got Peyton Wilson who's got a motor. You've got guys now that are so versatile that it should bring up the creativity of your defense.
And I think it almost close out a little bit. Like I think Kazi's 31, dead cap hit of $875,000, saving of $3 million. You know, that $3 million could go a long way when we look at other team cuts at a key position, right? Like, I mean, I talked about, like, you know, it's a story from another show, but, you know, if you were to cut, let's say Spencer Anderson shows out and Frazier, good to go, like absolutely good to go, which you and I both know he will be. It's just they're playing semantics at this point in time. And McCormick proves that he's a backup bloke, like a great backup as well. Then, but between Kazi and Herbig, that's $7 million. That $7 million could get you what would be wide receiver 2 in the Arthur Smith offense, but like one of the best wide receiver 3s in the league, maybe, you know, depending on the right team. Maybe not best in the league, but like a top depth wide receiver, better than what we've got on the roster right now. So it is an interesting idea, and I also think it's what you said about Ryan Watts at special teams. He's also a draft pick, and you and I both know that the Steelers don't like cutting draft picks.
Well, not with that much talent. I mean,
that much size, athleticism.
That avatar, man, he got the height, the length, the speed. I mean, he's got it. Yeah, he's got it. But here's something I want to point out that people got to think about, okay? When we're talking about Kazee. Now, I like Kazee, but when you develop a reputation and you've already had a 4-game suspension, the next one will be worse.
Yep.
So he's already said, I got to play different this year. Well, guess what? You're 5'11", you're 180 some pounds. You're going to have to play a certain way to stay on the field. If he tries to be less physical, he ain't going to be out there. So when you think about that, you're probably better off to keep a Ryan Watts or a guy like that over Kazee.
I love that you said that. If you had missed the weight, I was gonna bring that up and be like, man, you got to hit someone at that weight. So
yeah, you got to come full speed. You know,
exactly. You got no choice, right?
Yeah.
I love that. All right, well, I think that's gonna close out this segment or show of the Steelers Global Perspective. Stay tuned for more content that we've got coming out over the weekend.